Captain Han Tae-jin stood in the council chamber and watched Ambassador Park Dong-woo speak to an empty room. Well, not completely empty. 17 council members sat in their seats, but only 3 were actually listening. The others scrolled through datapads, whispered to assistants, or simply stared at the walls with bored expressions. One Threlix counselor got up and left halfway through Park's speech. She didn't even look back. Park was presenting humanity's petition for voting rights, the 47th petition in 20 years. Tae-jin knew every word by heart now. He'd heard this speech so many times he could recite it in his sleep. The numbers were damning. Humans did 34% of all technical work in the coalition, but held only 3% of leadership positions. Human scientists made breakthrough discoveries that other species claimed as their own. Human colonies got stripped of their resources without consultation. Human citizens needed special permits just to travel between sectors, something no other species required. The speech ended. The council voted. Denied. Again. They didn't even discuss it. Just pressed their buttons and moved to the next item on the agenda. Park gathered his papers with steady hands, but Tae-jin saw the tension in his shoulders. How many rejections could one man endure? Dr. Choi Hee-rim was waiting in the corridor when they left. She was a xenobiologist, but for the past 15 years, she'd been documenting something else entirely. Discrimination, exploitation, systemic erasure of human contributions. Her data files were massive now, filled with evidence that nobody wanted to see. They didn't even pretend to listen this time, she said quietly. Tae-jin just nodded. What was there to say? They all knew the truth. Humans were useful to the coalition, but not valued. There was a difference. And that difference had become impossible to ignore. The breaking point came 3 days later. News from New Jeju colony arrived in fragments, confused and desperate. Coalition peacekeepers had arrived without warning. The mining rights that the human colonists had worked for decades to develop were being transferred to a Krell corporation. When the colonists protested, the peacekeepers opened fire. 3 humans died. One of them was a child, just 8 years old. Tae-jin watched the footage in his quarters aboard the Perseverance. The video shook and blurred, recorded on someone's personal device. He saw the child fall, saw her mother screaming, saw the Krell overseer turn away as if nothing important had happened. The overseer was checking his datapad, probably calculating profit margins. Something cold settled in Tae-jin's chest. Not rage. He'd learned long ago that rage accomplished nothing in the coalition. This was something else. Clarity, perhaps, or maybe just acceptance of what had always been true. His communication console beeped, encrypted message from Earth Command. Tae-jin stared at those words for a long time. Protocol Exodus had been theoretical, a contingency plan that most humans hoped would never be necessary. It was simple in concept but massive in scope. Humanity would leave the coalition. All of it. Every human, every ship, every colony. A complete withdrawal, executed in perfect coordination, leaving no trace behind. He thought about the implications. 40 billion humans spread across hundreds of worlds, thousands of space stations, millions working in coalition facilities. They couldn't just vanish overnight. 40 billion humans of 7. Except they could, if they planned it carefully. And Earth Command had been planning this for years, just in case. Over the next weeks, something remarkable happened. Or rather, nothing remarkable happened. Which was the point. Humans continued their work exactly as they always had. Engineers maintained their systems. Doctors treated their patients. Teachers educated their students. Merchants conducted their business. Everything appeared completely normal. Beneath the surface, a massive evacuation was beginning. Human ships that had been scattered across coalition space started returning home. One by one. Always with good reasons. Crew rotations. family emergencies, maintenance schedules. Nobody questioned it. The coalition had never paid much attention to human patterns before. Human technicians updated all their documentation, writing detailed manuals in Korean. They assumed someone would translate them eventually. They assumed wrong. But that wasn't their problem anymore. Human scientists uploaded their research to coalition databases, careful to make sure the data was incomplete without human interpretation. Human merchants liquidated their assets quietly, converting everything to portable resources. Ambassador Park kept attending council meetings. He filed reports. He raised concerns about the New Jeju massacre. He requested investigations that everyone knew would never happen. He played his role perfectly, the frustrated diplomat still trying to work within the system. Nobody suspected he was counting down the days. Dr. Hee Rim attended a diplomatic reception one evening. A Threlix counselor cornered her near the refreshment table, his tentacles waving in what passed for friendly among his species. "You humans are so persistent," he said. His translator, rendering his voice as amused, "It's almost admirable. Like pets who keep trying to understand their masters." Hee Rim smiled politely. "We do try our best. Of course you do. You're cosmically lucky we keep you around. Where would you be without the coalition?" She took a sip of her drink before answering. "I suppose we'll never know." The Threlix laughed and moved on to another conversation. Hee Rim recorded the entire exchange. She sent it to Taejin with a single word. Exhibit 10,847. He watched it 3 times, then sent a message to Earth Command. Confirmed. 10 days before Exodus, Taejin had dinner with Overseer Vax Thor, the same Krell who had authorized the New Jeju reassignment. Vax Thor complained about human workers throughout the meal. "Too creative," he said. "Always questioning protocols. Never following orders exactly as written. So inefficient." A human chef had prepared the meal. Human servers brought each course. Human engineers maintained the gravity plates that kept them comfortably seated. Human technicians regulated the atmospheric controls that let a crystalline Krell and a carbon-based human share the same space. Vax Thor noticed none of it. To him, humans were just part of the background, like the furniture. "Something will have to be done about human inefficiency," Vax Thor said, cutting into his synthetic protein. "Perhaps more oversight. More regulations. Perhaps," Taejin agreed. He wondered how long Vax Thor would survive without that human oversight he took for granted. Months? Weeks? Days? Exodus Day arrived. Every human ship left simultaneously, departing from thousands of locations across Coalition space. Every human colony evacuated within 48 hours. A logistical miracle that other species would have considered impossible. They took only what belonged to them. They broke no laws. They filed their departure notices through proper channels, though those notices wouldn't be processed until after they were gone. They left everything in order. Offices were clean. Files were updated. Supplies were stocked. Everything was documented in meticulous detail. All in Korean. They weren't sabotaging anything. They were just leaving. The Perseverance was the last human ship to depart Coalition space. Taejin stood on the bridge, watching Unity Station shrink in the view screen. Lieutenant Bak Soo-jin stood beside him, her young face uncertain. "Captain, do you think they'll follow us?" she asked. Taejin shook his head slowly. "No. They don't think we matter enough to chase. Then, why did we document everything so carefully? Why leave the manuals and the files?" He was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Because we're human. We help, even when we're leaving. Even when we're not appreciated. It's who we are. Will they be all right without us?" Taejin thought about Vax Thor, complaining about human inefficiency while humans kept his entire world running. He thought about the Threlix counselor, comparing humans to pets. He thought about that child on New Jeju, who would never grow up because her life wasn't worth a second thought to Coalition peacekeepers. "No," he said quietly. They won't be all right. But that's not our responsibility anymore. They'll learn, Sujin nodded. She didn't ask what they would learn. They both already knew. The coalition was about to discover exactly how much they'd taken humanity for granted, and they were going to pay dearly for that lesson. The Perseverance jumped to hyperspace, following 40 billion other humans toward freedom. Behind them, the coalition slept, unaware that when they woke up, their entire civilization would begin to crumble. The humans had left the building, and they weren't coming back. Technician Ralven arrived at his engineering bay on Unity Station and stopped in the doorway. Something felt wrong. It took him a moment to identify what. The room was silent. No human chatter. No smell of that bitter drink they called coffee. No sound of tools being adjusted or systems being checked. Just silence. His team of 30 human engineers wasn't there. None of them. Their workstations were clean, their tools organized, their shift reports filed, but they were gone. All of them. Ralven checked his messages. 30 identical notices: family emergency, personal leave, medical situation, all approved through proper channels, all filed yesterday. He felt a flutter of concern in his crystalline matrix, but pushed it away. Humans took personal time. It was one of their inefficiencies. They'd be back. They weren't back. A week passed, and none of the humans returned. Not just his team. Humans across Unity Station had simply vanished. Ralven tried to contact them. Every message bounced back. Recipient unavailable. He tried to file complaints. The system showed the leave requests were all legitimate. The problems started small. Coffee stopped arriving in the station cafeteria. Annoying, but not critical. Several alien species had developed a taste for the human beverage, but they could survive without it. Then software updates started failing. Systems that usually updated automatically began showing error messages. Maintenance schedules slipped. Things that normally got fixed immediately began to accumulate on the work order list. Ralven found himself working 12-hour shifts, then 14, then 16. He was trying to do the work of his entire human team by himself. Every time he fixed one problem, 3 more appeared. Systems that had run smoothly for years suddenly required constant attention. He didn't understand why. The humans had made it look so easy. By the second week, the problems weren't small anymore. Life support on orbital stations needed constant manual adjustment. Atmospheric processors kept drifting out of balance. Before, this had been automated. Ralven discovered the automation required human programmers to maintain it. Without them, every adjustment had to be done by hand. Medical supplies started running short. The hospital administrator, a hexapod named Voth, sent increasingly desperate messages. Pharmaceutical shipments weren't arriving. When Voth checked the supply chains, he found chaos. Delivery schedules were scrambled. Warehouses had inventory, but no distribution coordination. Shipping manifests contradicted themselves. He dug deeper and discovered something terrifying. Human merchants had managed 67% of all pharmaceutical distribution. They hadn't just moved goods. They predicted needs based on seasons, populations, and historical patterns. They rerouted supplies during shortages. They maintained relationships with producers and consumers. They were the glue holding the entire supply chain together. And they were gone. By the third week, communication networks started showing lag. Messages that should arrive instantly were delayed by minutes, then hours. Coalition IT specialists investigated and found the quantum relay stations needed constant calibration. Human technicians had been doing it in their sleep, making tiny adjustments thousands of times per day. Without them, the network was slowly falling apart. Then, people started dying. A mining platform lost orbital stability. The calculations to correct it were complex. requiring adaptive problem-solving that coalition computer systems couldn't handle. By the time specialists arrived, it was too late. The platform struck the planet's atmosphere and burned up. 400 workers died, including families, children, entire lives erased, because nobody could solve a problem that humans had handled routinely. Counselor Quinsara read the casualty reports in her office. She'd been investigating the human disappearance for weeks now. Every day revealed new horrors. Humans hadn't just worked in the coalition, they'd been the invisible foundation holding everything together. And nobody had noticed until they were gone. She compiled her findings and requested an emergency council session. Chair Tolmec listened to her presentation with visible irritation. This is an inconvenience, nothing more. We'll hire consultants, implement better systems. The coalition survived for millennia before humans arrived. The coalition has changed since then, Quinsara argued. Our population has tripled. Our technology is more complex. Our supply chains span hundreds of systems. And humans were integrated into all of it. Then we'll adapt. We're not helpless, but they were discovering exactly how helpless they'd become. Food shortages hit industrial worlds. Human agricultural specialists had managed crop rotation, soil enrichment, and distribution optimization. Those seemed like simple tasks until nobody could figure out why crops were failing. The soil chemistry was wrong. But why? What were the humans doing that everyone else had missed? Environmental systems failed on 3 colonies. Evacuations were ordered. Millions of people displaced because life support couldn't maintain proper atmospheric balance. Human technicians had served as what one report called ecological intuition. They noticed small problems before they became catastrophic. They understood the complex interplay of systems in ways that other species approached purely mathematically. Mathematics should be enough, a Krell engineer insisted during a crisis meeting. Systems follow rules. Rules can be calculated. Humans used mathematics plus something else, Ralvin said quietly. He'd been working 20-hour shifts for weeks now, trying to keep his section of Unity Station functional. They called it intuition. Pattern recognition. They felt when something was wrong, before the sensors showed problems. That's not scientific. Neither is our current situation. But here we are. 4 months after the humans left, the coalition tried to replace them. They hired Krell engineers at 10 times human salary rates. The engineers were brilliant, top of their fields. But they couldn't prevent a reactor meltdown on a fusion station. They followed every protocol exactly, but missed something. Humans would have noticed the smell, yes, the smell that indicated a coolant leak. 3,000 more deaths. They deployed artificial intelligence systems to handle logistics. The AI was powerful, capable of processing billions of calculations per second. But it couldn't handle unexpected variables. When a shipping route got blocked by solar radiation, the AI simply stopped. It waited for the route to clear. A human logistics coordinator would have rerouted everything, found alternative paths, negotiated with carriers. The AI let 5 million tons of food spoil in warehouses while people went hungry. They assigned Threlix managers to human-designed facilities. The managers were confused by the interfaces. Humans had designed controls that felt intuitive to human operators, but seemed completely random to everyone else. Buttons were placed for easy human reach. Displays showed information in patterns that made sense to human perception. Warning systems used human color associations. Everything was optimized for a species that was no longer there. Ralvin had a breakdown during his 5th month of constant crisis management. He was alone in the engineering bay, surrounded by failing systems and error messages, trying to understand a maintenance log written in Korean. He couldn't read a single character. He'd worked alongside humans for 12 years and had never bothered to learn their language. Why would he? They all spoke coalition standard, but they documented everything in Korean. Every manual, every note, every explanation of how things actually worked. It was all there, carefully written, and completely useless to anyone who couldn't read it. Ralvin screamed at the empty room. Then he sat down and cried, something Krell rarely did. The Coalition Council met again at the 6-month mark. The situation had gone from crisis to catastrophe. Economic output had dropped by 40%. 12 colonies had been evacuated. Supply chains were collapsing. Medical care was rationed. Power outages were common. Communication networks were unreliable. The death toll had reached millions. "We need to contact humanity," Quinsara said. "Offer them proper compensation. Real citizenship. Actual rights." "That would show weakness," Tolmec countered. "We cannot let an inferior species dictate terms to the Coalition." "Inferior?" Quinsara's tentacles quivered with anger. "We're dying without them. Our civilization is collapsing. And you're still concerned about appearing weak? They'll come back on their own. When their little independence experiment fails, they'll realize they need us." But Quinsara had been researching where the humans went. She'd sent observation drones to the edges of human space. What she saw made her tentacles curl in despair. Human colonies were thriving, building, expanding, trading with non-coalition species who treated them fairly. They'd advanced their technology significantly in just 6 months. No longer constrained by coalition safety regulations that had held them back. The humans didn't need the coalition. They never had. They'd stayed out of hope, out of a desire to be part of something larger than themselves. And when that hope died on New Jeju, they'd simply moved on. Then another species left the coalition. The Mevlar were peaceful farmers who depended heavily on human agricultural specialists. Their crops were failing. Their people were starving. They sent a secret delegation to human space, begging for help. The humans refused them entry, but sent detailed agricultural guides translated into Mevlar language, free of charge. Help without strings attached. The Mevlar returned to the coalition and announced their secession. "The coalition has become a structure built on exploitation," their speaker declared. "When we needed help, the council voted to redistribute our remaining resources to stronger species. Meanwhile, the humans who owe us nothing sent aid. This is not civilization. This is tyranny wearing a civilized mask." Supply manager Voth was doing inventory in a warehouse when he found it. An old maintenance log, dated 6 years ago. The last entry was written by a human technician named Lee Youngmi. It read, "We fixed this pump 17 times. You never asked why it kept breaking. Here's why." Followed by a detailed technical explanation, then a final note. "You won't understand this. You never tried to. Good luck." Voth had the note translated. The explanation was brilliant, identifying a fundamental design flaw that caused cascade failures. Youngmi had fixed it manually 17 times rather than let the facility fail. The pump had been breaking weekly ever since she left. Nobody else knew how to interpret the diagnostic codes. Voth sat in the warehouse surrounded by supplies he could no longer properly distribute, holding a note from someone he'd never thanked, and understood what the coalition had lost. Not workers, not technicians, not inferior species who should be grateful for coalition membership. They'd lost partners who'd been holding everything together while everyone else took credit. On Unity Station, alarms echoed through empty corridors. Another system failure, another crisis. Ralvin stood in the engineering bay that had once housed 30 humans, holding a manual he couldn't read, watching cascade failures spread across his displays. Through the view screen, a freight convoy collided in the shipping lanes. Without human traffic controllers, it was just another disaster waiting to happen. He thought about his human team, whose names he'd barely remembered. Who made everything look easy? Who worked quietly, while everyone else assumed the work was simple? Who left careful instructions that nobody could read? The coalition had taken them for granted. Now, it was paying the price. And the bill was still coming due. The entertainment networks failed first. Not dramatically. Just a slow decline that nobody noticed until it was too late. New shows stopped appearing. Music releases slowed to a trickle. Games weren't updated. Within 8 months of humanity's departure, the Coalition's entire entertainment industry had effectively collapsed. Investigation revealed the obvious. Humans had created 80% of all entertainment content. They made shows, wrote music, designed games, told stories. Other species consumed this content eagerly, but rarely created their own. Why bother when humans did it so well? Now there was nothing new to watch, nothing new to play, nothing new to experience. Life became just work and sleep. The education system broke next. Human teachers had brought something other species called unnecessary: patience, encouragement, the ability to explain concepts in multiple ways until students understood. Without them, advanced courses became impossible to pass. Graduation rates dropped by 60%. A generation of young aliens was failing because nobody could teach them effectively. But the worst crisis was invisible: mental health. Humans had served as therapists, counselors, listeners. They developed these professions because they seemed to need them for their own well-being. Other species hadn't bothered. Now, suicide rates were climbing. Depression spread like disease. The Krell, once so rigid and certain, were discovering that their strict efficiency had left no room for emotional support, and they were breaking under the weight of a collapsing civilization. Former Ambassador Park Dong-woo received the Coalition's first official contact 1 year after Exodus, a formal request for negotiations. He read it in his office on Earth, surrounded by other human officials, and laughed. Not with joy. With the bitter amusement of someone who'd spent decades being ignored. "They're offering us 5% voting representation," he said. "Up from 0. How generous. Will you respond?" asked his aide. A young woman named Kim Ji-won. "I already did. 15 years ago. They didn't listen then. Why should I waste words now?" 2. The message went unanswered. The Coalition sent 3 more. All ignored. They couldn't understand it. Humans were supposed to be eager to please, always helpful, naturally servile. Why weren't they jumping at the chance to return? Counselor Quinsara took it upon herself to investigate personally. She traveled to the edge of human space in a small observation ship, staying just outside their borders. What she saw through her instruments shocked her. Human colonies were beautiful, clean, efficient, happy. They'd built new stations using designs that were generations ahead of Coalition technology. They were trading with dozens of species that the Coalition had dismissed as too primitive. She watched human ships come and go, noting their advanced engines, their elegant designs. She monitored their communications, hearing laughter and music, and the sound of people enjoying life. She realized something that made her tentacles quiver. Humans weren't suffering. They were thriving. They didn't need the Coalition. They'd never needed it. The Coalition economy entered full collapse at 14 months. Currency destabilized because human economists had managed the complex trading algorithms. Interstellar trade dropped 70% because humans had been the intermediaries who understood everyone's needs. Unemployment reached 30% because humans had done the foundational jobs that enabled everyone else to work. Black markets appeared, selling pre-Exodus human goods at 1,000 times their original price. A jar of human coffee cost more than a starship. A human-designed tool was worth a year's salary. A human instruction manual, if you could find someone to translate it, was literally priceless. Council Chair Tolmec watched his civilization crumble and refused to bend. "We will adapt," he insisted at every meeting. "We are strong. We will overcome this temporary setback without bowing to inferior species." But more species were leaving. The Hexapod Collective seceded, citing catastrophic governance failure. The Luminari, energy beings who'd relied on human stabilization technology, returned to their nebulae. Smaller species fled to human space, begging for refugee status. The Coalition was fragmenting, and then Admiral Ventok proposed the military option. Humanity's departure is economic warfare, he argued. We have the right to reclaim assets critical to coalition survival. A small military expedition to secure key facilities. Half the council supported the idea. They were desperate enough to try force. 3 coalition fleets jumped to what intelligence said was New Jeju's new location. They found a thriving colony, defended by modest but efficient forces. Admiral Ventok opened communication with the colony. Captain Rim Jin-woo appeared on screen, young and calm. Behind him, Ventok could see the colony, peaceful and prosperous. It made his anger burn hotter. By coalition law, you are required to return and resume your duties, Ventok declared. Failure to comply will result in forced compliance. Jin-woo's expression didn't change. We resigned. All legal procedures were followed. We owe you nothing. You owe us your existence. Without the coalition, humanity would still be confined to one primitive planet. Without humanity, your coalition is dying. Check your casualty reports, Admiral. How many million dead now? How many more while you waste time threatening us? Ventok ordered a warning shot fired. His weapons officer pressed the button. Nothing happened. The Admiral's flagship, along with every ship in his fleet, simply went dark. Engines offline. Weapons offline. Life support running on emergency batteries. Every system disabled in an instant. Human defense ships approached. Towing equipment. They attached cables to the coalition vessels and began pulling them toward the border. Not destroying them. Not even damaging them. Just removing them. Jin-woo's voice came through on emergency channels. Your ships will be released at the border. We've done no permanent damage. But Admiral, this is your only warning. Go home. You're not welcome here. The humiliation was complete. The coalition's military, once so proud, towed back to their own space like garbage being removed. Ventok tried to file charges against humanity for the assault. The council rejected them. They couldn't admit that a small human colony defense force had effortlessly defeated 3 full fleets. At 18 months, the coalition sent a formal apology, not from the whole council, just from Quinsara's reformist faction. It acknowledged historical oversights in human integration. It offered full partnership status. It promised equitable treatment going forward. It requested negotiations. Park Dong-woo read it during a meeting with human colonial governors. Someone asked if he'd respond. He smiled sadly. I already did. They just weren't listening. 1-1. 1-1. 1-1. 1-1. But he did send one message. Brief and direct. When your council is willing to acknowledge what you did to us, not historical oversights, but systematic oppression, maybe we'll talk. Maybe. The coalition split into civil war 2 years after Exodus. Quinsara led reformists who wanted to restructure everything as equals. Tolmec led hardliners who wanted to restore the old order through force. Neither side was winning. Both were just destroying what little remained. Millions of refugees fled the fighting. They arrived at human borders in broken ships, starving, dying, desperate. Human colonies watched and debated. Some wanted to help immediately, others wanted nothing to do with former oppressors. The argument raged through human space. Admiral Tae-jin, now commanding humanity's defensive fleet, made the decision. We help. Not because they deserve it. Because we're better than they were. Human ships began rescue operations, pulling refugees from dying vessels, providing food and medicine and shelter. A Krell refugee asked his human nurse why she was helping him. Her name was Kwon Eun-hee, and she looked tired but determined. Because this is what civilization actually means, she said. Not how advanced you are. How you treat people who can't help themselves. The Krell started crying. His rigid species rarely showed emotion, but something in him broke. We called you inferior. We treated you like servants. Why are you being kind? Yoon-hee adjusted his ivy line gently. Because someone has to remember what kindness is. Someone has to break the cycle. 3 years after Exodus, Tolmec launched a desperate assault on human space. He'd convinced his followers that if they couldn't have human workers, neither could the reformists. If they destroyed human colonies, humans would have to return to coalition space for survival. It was madness. But desperate people believe mad things. The attack failed spectacularly. Human defenses had advanced far beyond coalition technology. But Taejin didn't destroy the attacking fleets. He disabled them, captured them, and broadcasted everything. The crews were starving because Tolmec had stopped supplying frontline ships. Their vessels were falling apart without human maintenance. They were conscripts, forced into service, promised rewards that didn't exist. Taejin offered them asylum. 60% surrendered immediately. They were treated as refugees, not prisoners. Given medical care, food, housing, dignity, things the coalition had stopped providing. One soldier, a young Krell named Tekvin, couldn't understand it. Why help us? We came to destroy you. The human doctor treating him shrugged. You're people. People need help. It's simple, but we're your enemies. No. Your leaders are our enemies. You're just people who got caught in their madness. 4 years after Exodus, Counselor Quinn Zara sent a message to every human governmental body. Not as a council representative. As a person. She offered full reparations, complete cultural autonomy, equal representation in government, guaranteed rights that could never be revoked. The right to leave, at any time. Forever. Most importantly, she offered something else. Truth. We were wrong. Not mistaken. Wrong. We built our civilization on your backs and convinced ourselves you should be grateful. We ignored your contributions and claimed your achievements. We treated you as less than people. And when you left, we blamed you instead of examining ourselves. I'm sorry. We're sorry. And if you never forgive us, we'll understand. Humanity debated for months. Some wanted to help immediately. Others wanted stronger guarantees. Some wanted nothing to do with the coalition, ever. Admiral Taejin spoke at the General Assembly. We can't become the oppressors. But we can't forget what they did either. We need balance. Tay. Ambassador Park proposed terms. A 50-year mutual aid treaty. Joint government with equal representation. Complete cultural protection. Reparations for 3 centuries of exploitation. Educational programs teaching human history to all coalition species. And most importantly, any species could leave at any time, with no retaliation, ever. The coalition accepted every term. They had no choice. They were dying, and everyone knew it. 5 years after Exodus, Tolmec and his hardliner leadership stood trial. Not before humans. Before the reformist coalition, charged with war crimes and crimes against sapient beings. Dr. Choi Hae-rim attended every session, taking notes for history. When the guilty verdict came, Tolmec screamed his defiance. You're validating their insubordination, Quinsara responded quietly. We're acknowledging our crimes. She turned to the human observers. I know this doesn't fix anything, but it's a start. Human volunteers began arriving in coalition space. Engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers. But this time as partners, paid fairly, respected, thanked. They worked alongside aliens who were finally learning from them. Supply manager Voth worked with a human named Shin Bo-ra, repairing the shattered supply chains. He apologized constantly, ashamed of how he'd taken her people for granted. Bo-ra eventually stopped him. Teach your children to see others clearly. That's apology enough. On Unity Station, being rebuilt by human and alien workers together, they erected a memorial. The names of the 3 humans killed at New Jeju. The names of the millions who died in the collapse. An inscription in 50 languages. Those who forget the lessons of tyranny are doomed to repeat them. Remember this cost. Never again. Admiral Tae-jin and Counselor Quinsara stood before the memorial at its dedication. She asked quietly, "Can you forgive us?" "I don't speak for all humans," he replied. "But, personally, I'm working on it. That's more than we deserve. Probably. But humanity isn't about what people deserve. It's about what we choose to give." They shook hands, human and alien, equal and respected, building something new from the ashes of what was. 10 years after Exodus, Dr. Song Na-ri published her book. She'd spent the entire decade interviewing survivors, analyzing records, documenting everything. The book was called The Exodus: How Humanity Left and Civilization Learned. It became required reading across both human and coalition space. Nari didn't write a celebration of human superiority. She didn't demonize all aliens. She analyzed systems, structures, and the small choices that built up into catastrophe. Her central question haunted every page. How do we build a society where this never happens again? The Reformed Coalition was trying to answer that question. The new government structure was messy. True democracy always was. Every species had proportional representation. Economic systems were based on mutual benefit, not exploitation. Cultural protection laws ensured nobody was forced to assimilate. The right to leave was fundamental, enshrined in the founding documents where everyone could see it. It was slower than the old autocracy. Decisions took longer. Arguments were common. But it was fair. That made the inefficiency worth it. Not all humans chose to return to coalition space. 40% of human colonies remained independent, and the coalition respected that. Some humans could never trust aliens again after what happened. Some just preferred their independence. The Reformed Coalition understood and didn't pressure them. That understanding, that respect for the choice to stay away, meant more than any apology. Among the species that survived the collapse, change ran deep. The Krell, once so rigid and hierarchical, were learning creativity and flexibility. They discovered that human inefficiency was actually joy, art, and the ability to find meaning beyond work. Young Krell were writing poetry now, something their ancestors would have considered pointless. The Threlix, who'd compared humans to pets, now led cultural exchange programs. They taught their children about the Exodus as the greatest shame in their history. A Threlix educator named Silmar told her class, "Our grandparents nearly destroyed civilization, not through war or disaster, but through casual cruelty. Remember that. Cruelty doesn't need to be intentional to cause harm." New species considering coalition membership asked about the Exodus first. It was a test. How do you talk about this? Do you make excuses? Do you blame the humans? Or do you take responsibility? The answers determined whether a species was ready for true partnership. The economy recovered and then exceeded pre-Exodus levels. Turns out respected workers were more productive than exploited ones. Turns out diverse perspectives solved problems faster than homogeneous thinking. Turns out investing in all species benefited everyone. The coalition reached 150% of its old economic output because it finally included everyone's potential. But new crises kept coming. That was life. The difference was how they faced them now. A plague threatened multiple worlds, spreading faster than medicine could track. Human and alien doctors worked together, combining human intuition with Krell precision and Threlix coordination. They found a cure in 3 weeks. Before the Exodus, it would have taken months, if they'd found it at all. A spatial anomaly endangered the main shipping lanes. Mixed species teams attacked the problem from every angle. A young hexapod physicist, named Veltic, proposed a solution based on human chaos theory, combined with luminary energy manipulation. It worked perfectly. Veltic's human colleague, a woman named Park Young-mi, hugged him in celebration. He was surprised by the gesture but hugged back. Physical affection was becoming normal across species. Another human gift. A hostile alien empire appeared at the borders, aggressive and expansionist. They expected the coalition to be weak, fractured, easy prey. Instead, they found a united front: humans, Krell, Threlix, and 50 other species standing together. The hostile empire retreated, confused. Unity was a weapon they hadn't anticipated. Ambassador Kim Hyun-ki addressed the coalition assembly one morning. He was young, barely 30, and had been a child during the Exodus. He remembered fleeing Unity Station with his family, remembered his father crying as their ship jumped away, remembered the fear and uncertainty. My parents taught me that the coalition failed not because it was alien to us, but because it forgot what civilization means, he said. We're building something new now. Not human civilization, not Krell or Threlix civilization, but our civilization. Every species brings gifts. Every perspective has value. That's not weakness. That's our strength. The assembly erupted in applause. Not just humans. Everyone. Because Hyun-ki's words reflected the change they'd all fought for. Reconciliation projects helped heal generational wounds. Humans and aliens worked together on joint colonies, mixing from the start rather than segregating by species. Student exchange programs placed alien children in human schools and human children in alien schools from their earliest years. A Threlix composer named Kixvara partnered with a human musician named Lee Tae-woo. Together, they created a symphony that became the Reformed Coalition's unofficial anthem. It was called Harmony from Discord, and it perfectly captured the painful transformation from division to unity. The piece started with discordant notes, each instrument fighting the others, then slowly, painfully, found harmony without losing individual voices. Counselor Quinsara, now elderly and retired, gave a final speech before leaving public life. Her tentacles had faded to pale gray, her movements slow, but her voice was strong. We had everything, she said. Technology, resources, good people, and we nearly destroyed it all. Not through war, not through disaster, through casual cruelty and willful blindness. We tell ourselves we didn't know better. That's a lie. The humans told us. We chose not to listen. She paused, looking across the assembly. The lesson isn't that humans were special. It's that we almost lost them by treating them as ordinary. Watch for that pattern. When you find yourselves dismissing someone's value, remember us. Remember the price we paid. The assembly sat in silence after she finished. Then, slowly, everyone stood, human and alien together, honoring the truth she'd spoken. Personal stories of transformation spread through both societies. Technician Ralvin, who'd worked himself to breakdown trying to replace his human team, now ran an engineering school. His best student was a human woman named Choi Soo-jin. She reminded him of Lee Young-mi, the technician whose note had broken his heart. He told Soo-jin that once, and she smiled. Young-mi was my aunt, she said. She talked about you sometimes. Said you were brilliant but didn't listen. I'm glad you learned. Ralvin felt something crack in his crystalline structure. She knew. She left those notes hoping someone would eventually read them. That someone was you. Supply manager Voth wrote a memoir about the collapse's logistics breakdown. It became a standard business school text, used to teach future managers about the hidden complexity in systems that look simple. He titled it, The Invisible Foundation, acknowledging the workers everyone took for granted. Captain Rim Jin-woo, who'd turned away coalition warships with quiet efficiency, now commanded a joint defense fleet. His second-in-command was Admiral Ventok's daughter, a young Vren named Keltok. She'd joined the reformed military specifically to work with humans, to prove her generation was different. My father still thinks he was right, she told Jin-woo once. He can't accept that he was wrong. She was wrong. Some people can't change, Jin-woo replied. That's why we focus on the next generation. Do you hate him? For what he did. Jinwoo considered the question. No. Hate takes energy better spent building things. I just don't think about him much. 15 years after Exodus, Unity Station hosted a commemoration ceremony. Humans and aliens gathered to remember the fallen, celebrate survival, and commit to the future. Some humans protested outside, carrying signs reading, "Never forget," and "No forgiveness." Security left them alone. Protest was a right now, not something to be suppressed. Inside, Admiral Taejin sat with Counselor Quinsara, both old now, both carrying the weight of history. They watched young people of mixed species laugh together, work together, live together in ways that would have been impossible before. Do you think it's really different this time? Quinsara asked. Taejin smiled slightly. Ask me in another 15 years. But I'm hopeful. Hope. That's very human. Maybe. Or maybe it's just what survivors do. Throughout former coalition space, monuments appeared. At New Jeju, a memorial honored the 3 killed in the massacre. Their names were carved in stone 6 meters high. Min Soo Park, age 37. Haewon Jung, age 34. Little Da Eun Kim, age 8. The memorial's inscription read, "They died because we didn't matter. We left, so we would." At Unity Station, the central memorial listed millions who died in the collapse, names in every language, every species. The message was clear. Everyone paid for the coalition's arrogance. At the human border, a simple marker. They left here as workers. They returned here as equals. Schools taught the Exodus as the central event of modern history. Not to shame alien students or glorify human students, but to illustrate consequences. A Krell teacher named Dax Run told his mixed class, "Oppression hurts everyone. The oppressed directly. The oppressors by making them less than they could be. Your grandparents learned that the hard way." A small human boy raised his hand. Teacher Dax Run. Could it happen again? The teacher was quiet for a moment. Yes. That's why we study it. That's why we remember. So we can recognize the patterns and stop them early. The philosophy of civilization itself had changed. Before, civilization meant advancement, technology, order. After the Exodus, civilization meant how you treated the least powerful among you. The question shifted from, how advanced are we, to, how just are we? 20 years after Exodus, a joint exploration mission prepared to launch. The ship was co-commanded by a human and a Krell, Admiral Songbo Ra and Commander Thexville. Their mission: explore beyond known space. Seek new civilizations. Establish contact. The mission statement included principles that would have been impossible before. We seek not to dominate, but to learn. Not to exploit, but to exchange. Not to judge, but to understand. We carry the lessons of our past, so we don't repeat them in new territory. At the launch ceremony, Dr. Song Na-ri, now elderly and honored, gave the blessing. 20 years ago, humanity left because we couldn't stay. We return because we chose to. That choice, that freedom, makes all the difference. Go now, explore, learn, and remember, every being you meet matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. That's the lesson we paid so dearly to learn. The ship launched, carrying humans and aliens into the unknown together. Equal partners, genuine colleagues, real friends. Behind them, the reformed coalition continued its work. Still imperfect. Still learning. Still growing. But better. So much better than before. Because they'd learned the price of taking anyone for granted. And they'd decided, collectively, that they'd never pay that price again. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. But the greatest wonder was simple. People of different species, different worlds, different bodies and minds, choosing to see each other clearly, choosing to value each other genuinely, choosing to build something together. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't their engineering or their problem-solving or their creativity. It was holding up a mirror and forcing the coalition to see itself clearly. What they saw was ugly, but they looked anyway, and they changed. That was the real victory. Not humans proving they were needed, but everyone learning that civilization isn't measured by what you build. It's measured by how you treat the people who build it with you. A classroom on Unity Station, 20 years after the Exodus. The room held 30 students from 12 different species. They sat in groups arranged by choice, not species. A human girl worked with 2 Krell boys on a mathematics problem. A Threlix child helped a hexapod with language homework. This mixing was normal now. Children who'd never known the old ways. Their teacher was a young human man named Quan Bong Su. He taught history, which meant he taught the Exodus. Every student learned it, usually around age 12. Old enough to understand, young enough to still be shaped by the lesson. Today's lesson focused on the question that mattered most. Why did humanity come back? A Krell student named Pixtar raised his hand. Because they're better than us. Bong Su shook his head gently. No. He gestured to the classroom, to students working together across species lines. This is why. Because the galaxy is better when we see each other. Really see each other. A Threlix student, Quinn Rill, raised a tentacle. Teacher Bong Su, will it last? Will we stay together? It was the question that haunted every generation since the Exodus. Would they slip back into old patterns? Would new forms of oppression emerge? Would the lesson hold? Bong Su smiled. But it was tinged with sadness. That depends on you. On all of us. Every day, we choose what kind of civilization we build. Through the classroom window, stars shone. The same stars that had witnessed humanity's departure and return. The same stars that would witness whatever came next. Bong Su hoped his students were ready for that responsibility. He thought they might be. After class, he walked through Unity Station. The corridors were busy with workers from dozens of species. A human engineer discussed plans with a Krell supervisor. A Threlix merchant laughed with her hexapod business partner. A mixed-species medical team hurried past, responding to some emergency. This was normal now. Cooperation, partnership, equality. But Bong Su had studied enough history to know that normal could change. Rights could erode. Progress could reverse. The only guarantee was constant vigilance. He passed the central memorial and stopped, as he always did. The names of millions who died in the collapse were carved into black stone that stretched for hundreds of meters. He found little Da-eun Kim's name, the 8-year-old who died at New Jeju, the massacre that sparked everything. He touched the name gently. We remember, he whispered. We'll keep remembering. Dr. Song Na-ri sat in her home on Earth, reviewing the latest edition of her book. 20 years of continuous updates, new interviews, fresh perspectives. She was 83 now, her hair completely white, her hands marked with age. But her mind remained sharp. A message appeared on her screen. A Krell student from some distant colony, asking questions about the Exodus. Nari smiled. She answered every message personally, even after 2 decades, especially from young aliens who wanted to understand. They were the future. She wrote back, Your grandparents made mistakes. You don't have to repeat them. But you have to stay alert. Oppression is subtle. It creeps in through small dismissals, casual disrespect, normalized hierarchy. Watch for it. Stop it early. That's your responsibility now. On a joint colony called New Harmony, humans and aliens lived completely mixed. No separate districts. No species-specific zones. Just neighborhoods where anyone might be your neighbor. The colony's founders had chosen this integration intentionally, making it impossible to segregate even if someone wanted to. Young-hee Park, a human farmer, worked her fields alongside her Krell partner Thexmon. They'd been farming together for 15 years, combining human agricultural intuition with Krell mathematical precision. Their yields were the highest on the planet. "Do you remember the old days?" Thexmon asked one afternoon, his crystalline form glinting in the sun. Young-hee shook her head. "I was a child during Exodus. I remember being scared. Remember my parents' anger. But I don't remember the coalition before. My parents do. They're ashamed. They knew humans were being treated badly and did nothing." "Are you ashamed?" Thexmon was quiet for a moment. "Not of myself. Of my species' history. But also proud that we changed. Does that make sense?" Reader C. Reader C. Reader C. Reader C. Perfect sense. Shame means you care. Pride means you learned. They continued working in comfortable silence. Human and Krell, building something together under an alien sun. The reformed coalition government met in session, as it did every week. The chamber was arranged in concentric circles. No species elevated above others. Voting was proportional and transparent. Debates were long and sometimes heated. But they were fair. Ambassador Kim Hyun-ki presented a proposal for expanding cultural protection laws. Some colony worlds were trying to pressure minority species to adopt majority customs. Nothing violent, just social pressure. But that's how it started before. Small pressures. Subtle dismissals. Normalized discrimination. The proposal passed overwhelmingly. A Threlix counselor named Vasisquin spoke in support. "We cannot allow any return to the old ways. Not even small steps. Small steps become marches. Become stampedes. We learned that lesson in blood." After the session, Hyun-ki spoke with Vasquin privately. "Do you think the hardliners are really gone? Or just quiet?" "Quiet," Vasisquin admitted. "There are always those who want hierarchy, who need to feel superior to someone. But they're powerless now. As long as we stay vigilant, that's the part that worries me. Vigilance is exhausting. Eventually, people relax. Then we must teach vigilance to each generation. Make it part of who we are." The military had transformed as much as any institution. Joint training meant soldiers learned from each other's strengths. Humans taught improvisation and creative tactics. Krell taught precision and planning. Threlix taught coordination and communication. Every species contributed. Commander Keltak, Admiral Ventak's daughter, had risen through the ranks. Her command style was nothing like her father's. Where he'd been rigid and hierarchical, she was flexible and collaborative. She'd learned from her human colleagues that strength came from trust, not fear. Her second in command was a human named Jung Sung-ho. They'd served together for a decade, surviving 3 major conflicts. They trusted each other, absolutely. "Do you think about the Exodus much?" Sung-ho asked during a quiet moment. Keltak nodded. "Every day. My father's shame is part of me. I can't change what he did. I can only try to be different. You are different, because humans showed us how. By leaving. By forcing us to see ourselves clearly. By forcing us to see. By forcing us to see. On Earth, in the human capital, a massive archive preserved everything from the Exodus era. Every document, every recording, every personal account. Access was free and universal. School groups toured regularly, aliens and humans together, learning their shared history. An elderly Threlix historian named Pixizara spent her days in the archive. She devoted her life to understanding how the coalition had failed so catastrophically. Her conclusion, published in dozens of papers, was simple. Systemic blindness caused by normalized superiority. When you believe you're superior, you stop seeing others clearly. You miss their contributions because you assume those contributions are simple. You dismiss their complaints because you assume they're exaggerating. You take their presence for granted because you believe they need you more than you need them. The coalition had suffered from all of this, and it had nearly killed them. Pixera was training young historians, teaching them to watch for these patterns in current society. "It won't look the same as last time," she told her students. "Oppression adapts. It finds new forms. Your job is to recognize the pattern beneath the surface." Medical science had advanced through cooperation in ways that would have been impossible before. Human intuition, combined with Krell precision, combined with Threlix coordination, produced breakthroughs at an accelerated pace. A cure for Krell crystal degradation. Treatment for Threlix neural disorder. Solutions to dozens of ailments across all species. Dr. Minseo Yoon worked in a research hospital with a mixed species team. Her specialty was cross-species medical care, understanding how treatments affected different biological systems. It was complex work, but rewarding. Her colleague, a Krell named Vextar, had become a close friend. They'd published 17 papers together, revolutionizing how different species approached illness. "My grandfather died during the collapse," Vextar told her once. "Medical supplies stopped reaching his colony. He died of something completely treatable. I became a doctor because of that." Minseo nodded. She'd heard similar stories from many aliens. The collapse had touched everyone. "We're making sure it doesn't happen again. Are we? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? I don't know. But I'll keep working like we can prevent it." What else can we do? Keep working, keep caring, keep seeing each other clearly. Maybe that's enough. The entertainment industry had recovered and transformed. Human creators worked alongside alien creators, producing content that reflected their mixed civilization. The most popular show in Reformed Coalition space was a drama about the Exodus, told from multiple perspectives. It didn't shy away from difficult truths. It showed alien cruelty and human pain. But it also showed the possibility of change. Music had become truly universal. Humans and aliens collaborated constantly, creating sounds that no single species could produce alone. A concert on Unity Station featured a human pianist, a Krell percussionist, and a Threlix vocalist. The music was hauntingly beautiful, different from anything that came before. After the concert, the musicians talked with young fans. One small hexapod child asked the human pianist, "Why do you work with aliens?" The pianist, a woman named Baek Hae-jin, smiled. "Because together, we make something neither of us could make alone. That's what civilization should be." Trade flourished under the new system. Fair payment, mutual benefit, transparent practices. Human merchants worked with alien merchants, building relationships based on respect rather than exploitation. The economy was stronger than ever because everyone prospered. A human trader named Song Dong-woo partnered with a Threlix merchant named Qualvar. They specialized in cultural goods, helping species share their art and artifacts. It was profitable, but more importantly, it built understanding. "My ancestor was the ambassador during the Exodus," Dong-woo told Qualvar once. "The one who stopped responding to council messages? That's him. He died 5 years ago. Before he passed, he told me something. He said the hardest part wasn't leaving. It was coming back, trusting again after being betrayed so deeply." "Do you trust us?" Qualvar asked quietly. Dong-woo considered the question. "I trust you. Personally. The system? I'm still watching it. Maybe I always will be. That's fair. We should be watched. We've earned that suspicion. Education systems taught more than facts now. They taught empathy, critical thinking, recognition of subtle bias. Students learned to question their assumptions, examine their privileges, see beyond their own perspectives. A Krell teacher named Dalven taught a class on cognitive bias. He showed his students mixed species. As all classes were now, how easy it was to dismiss others without realizing it. "Your brain takes shortcuts," he explained. "It categorizes, simplifies, assumes. Usually, that's helpful. But sometimes, It makes you blind to reality. You have to fight against your own brain to see clearly. A human student named Lee Wonshik raised his hand. Is that what happened before? The coalition's brain took shortcuts? Exactly. They saw humans as workers, so they assumed human work was simple. They never questioned that assumption, never looked deeper, and it nearly destroyed them. 25 years after Exodus, the Reformed Coalition celebrated its anniversary. Not the old coalition's founding, the new ones. The day they officially adopted the new structure, guaranteeing rights and equality to all species. The celebration was huge, spanning thousands of worlds. But the main event was on Unity Station, where it had all fallen apart and been rebuilt. Representatives from every species gathered, humans and aliens, young and old, remembering the past and building the future. Former Admiral Tae-jin gave a speech. He was 93 now, frail but sharp. 25 years ago, we made a choice. We chose to help those who hurt us, not because they deserved it, because we refused to let their cruelty make us cruel. That choice defined who we became. He paused, looking across the massive crowd. But choices aren't made once. They're made every day. Every interaction. Every policy. Every small decision about how we treat each other. The question isn't whether you're good people. The question is whether you'll keep choosing goodness, even when it's hard. The crowd was silent, absorbing his words. Then, a young Threlix in the front row stood and began to applaud. Others joined. Soon the entire station echoed with applause from thousands of hands, tentacles, and appendages. Tae-jin stepped down from the podium. Counselor Quinsara was there. Ancient now. Supported by a hover chair, they embraced, human and alien. Survivors of the worst, and builders of something better. We did it, Quinsara whispered. We actually did it. We started it, Tae-jin corrected gently. They have to finish it. He gestured to the young people in the crowd. The ones who'd grown up in the Reformed Coalition, who knew the old ways only as history. They were laughing together, working together, living together, the future personified. Will they? Quinsara asked. I don't know, but I'm hopeful. Still human, even at 93, Tae-jin smiled. Still learning. Even at your age. They watched the celebration together. Two old souls who'd seen the worst and helped build the best. Around them, civilization continued. Imperfect. Struggling. Learning. But trying. Always trying. Because they'd learned the lesson that cost so much to teach. You can't take anyone for granted. You can't dismiss any contribution as simple. You can't treat anyone as less than people. And if you do, you'll pay for it. The galaxy spun on. Stars burned. Life flourished. And in one small corner of the infinite universe, different species had learned to see each other clearly, to value each other genuinely, to build together in harmony. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it was worth everything they'd suffered to achieve. The humans had left. The humans had returned. And in that leaving and returning, everyone had learned what civilization truly meant. Not domination, not hierarchy, not exploitation disguised as opportunity. Just people. Different people. Seeing each other clearly. Working together honestly. Building something that none of them could build alone. That was the gift. That was the lesson. That was the hope that would carry them forward into whatever came next. Together.